On the 24th of March, in the year 2000, 13 children tragically lost their lives when a stampede broke out at a popular nightclub in the Chatsworth area. In the days that followed, a sad revelation would be revealed. These innocent lives were all taken due to a failed money-making scheme. On the final day of the first school term, in the year 2000, many children from Chatsworth and the surrounding areas were looking to blow off some steam and celebrate the beginning of the school holidays. They hoped to do this at the Throbs Nightclub, which was situated in the heart of Chatsworth, walking distance from both the police station and hospital. Later on the same day, staff from both these locations would find themselves scrambling to save as many lives as they could. While these children were just hoping to have some fun, multiple people were putting a plan in place. A plan that would allow them to cause fear and panic to these children, so they could use it for monetary gain. Close by to the Throbs, another nightclub was not doing very well financially. Siva Chetty, the manager of the club and the mastermind behind the plan, had hoped that the fear and panic he would cause would force the young patrons into his own establishment. He hired two men named Salvan Naidu and Vincent Pillai to help him carry out his plan. According to statements that would be later given in court, Chetty supplied the men with a tear gas canister, which Vincent smuggled into the club and Salvan placed behind a speaker. The plan was simple. The detonation of the canister inside the club would create a panic, and the young patrons would have to find somewhere else to continue their celebration. Siva Chetty hoped that that new location would be his own club. However, something went horribly wrong. On the day of the incident, the Throbs Nightclub was full to capacity, with some sources claiming that there were up to 1,000 people present. Many teenagers were ordering drinks at the bar, while others were enjoying themselves on the dance floor. Unfortunately, the excitement wouldn't last long. The tear gas canister hidden behind one of the speakers detonated, and almost immediately a stampede began, with people desperately trying to reach the exit. They were confused and frightened, and their fear led them to the only known exit, as they struggled to get fresh air and sunlight. However, the exit was too small to let everyone out at once. The stress caused on the building by the large crowd had collapsed a balustrade wall, trapping children underneath it. Other children had fallen over, and the crowd trampled on them and climbed over them in a desperate attempt to get away. A specialist would later find that this is what led to 13 deaths. However, just as the chaos had begun, so did the response. About 140 meters away from the Throbs Nightclub, officers and staff at the Chatsworth police station had already started responding. As they rushed to the scene, they were met with a chaotic and troubling sight. The smell of tear gas was already in the air outside, and the screams of the children inside could still be heard. While many were being helped with their injuries, evacuation and the process of removing the bodies had already begun. Parents found themselves rushing to both the hospital close by and the police station seeking answers, while also wondering if their children were still alive. As parents had made their way to identify the bodies of those who had passed, one of the responding officers did the best she could to lay them down with dignity. She placed sheets on the floor of the room and laid the bodies down on top of it, putting their hands against them and neatening up their clothes. Throughout the rest of the weekend, officers investigated the scene, combing through what was left of the Throbs Nightclub, while on the side lay a pile of shoes belonging to both the children who had made it out alive and the children who hadn't. In November of the same year, the trial against the three men who had orchestrated the disaster began. Salvan Naidu, Vincent Pillai, and Siva Chetty faced 13 murder charges, among many others. The families and friends of the children who had lost their lives showed up in large numbers, hoping that justice would be served. Parents of the children who lost their lives, as well as teenagers who survived the disaster, testified and shed light on everything that occurred. As the trial continued, the judge, along with parents, legal teams, and reporters, inspected the site of the incident. Although it had been months since it occurred, telltale signs still remained at the scene. Among these were shoes, a notebook, a diary, and rubble from the collapsed wall. All three men who stood trial had received different periods of time in prison. However, none of them had served their full sentence, as they had all been given parole a few years later. On the 25th of March, a monument was unveiled in the memory of the children who lost their lives, with some of their names carved into it. The monument now sits in a small park in between the Chatsworth Child Welfare Offices and R.K. Khan's Circle. Later in 2003, the Chatsworth Youth Center was opened by President Nelson Mandela in memory of the children.